All right, so let's talk a little bit about water systems. So as a homeowner, people have several options when it comes to home water treatment. And if you do an internet search or you talk to somebody, sometimes it can be a little bit confusing about just what is what and what do these systems really do. It's really pretty simple, and in the next couple of minutes, we're going to bring it right down to make it as simple and easy as possible for you to understand water treatment in a nutshell. First thing you want to understand is that there's basically two types of systems people put on their home. There's a full house system, which is referred to as a POE or point of entry system, which is often water softeners, water conditioners, some sort of a full house type system. And then you've got your point of use, POU systems, which is typically like the little filter that you screw on the faucet, reverse osmosis system, or a steam distillation apparatus. First off, let's just talk briefly about full house water treatment systems, which the most common out there is water softening. Water softening has great benefits for the home. It cuts down on the water hardness, but it has nothing to do with health of the body or high purity water. And what you want to stay away from is people who are pushing systems that are saying full house drinking water systems. Basically, those are typically just have a little bit of carbon media in them. They they'll cut down on chlorine and some of the chemicals, but nothing really significant to improve the quality of your drinking water. When it comes to the point of use systems, when you're just treating the water that you're going to be used for consumption, now you can take that smaller quantity of water, because the amount of water we use to drink is a lot less than what we use in the rest of the house, and we can really purify it to a much higher degree. The most common system out there when people want really good drinking water is a reverse osmosis system. They're fairly inexpensive. They install fairly easily right underneath the sink, and have this separate little dedicated faucet at the kitchen sink. These, whether it's a reverse osmosis system or some sort of a filter you screw on a faucet, there's one thing that's in common, and that's that it's a barrier type system. And if you look at this picture in front of you, a barrier is just like it sounds. We've put something in the water line to hopefully catch and keep debris and dirt and other things from coming through the water. And it's basically a screen. It's a filter. It's a membrane. The problem with a barrier type system is, one, you're relying on a manufactured, man-made type barrier, which could have imperfections. Secondly is, as you can see, as stuff starts to build up on this barrier, in normal operation, we'll have variables like water pressure, water hammer, temperature change, and with that, we'll actually get some of that stuff releasing as it builds up on that filter. It'll actually release and come through in little spurts or little spikes. So if you were able to put together a monitoring system to actually monitor the purity of water, it's going to have little spikes or little variables that change because of the imperfections of a barrier type system. Now, just to talk a little bit about bottled water, most of the bottled water has gone through some sort of barrier type system. Now, the barriers that they use in a water treatment plant where they're doing bottled water are much, much different than the barrier type systems you might put underneath somebody's kitchen sink. When they're doing it on a big commercial scale, people are paid to monitor those systems 24/7. They have very high-tech equipment. They do a pretty good job. The barrier type systems that go in underneath a person's home almost provide false security, because they just don't have that rigorous monitoring and maintenance that they should. Now, let's take a little bit of a segue. We've talked about barrier type point of use systems, and let's just take a minute and talk about how nature treats the water. In nature, what would you consider a barrier type system? Most people think of the ground. Water leaches down from a lake or from the river, starts out as rain, hits the ground, leaches down through the ground, ends up in a well, and people pump it back up. And they're so excited because they've got this wonderful well water. And that's an example of a barrier type system in nature. Can stuff get through there? Yes, absolutely. It's not necessarily a pure water. It's just, it may or may not be filtered or improved. Now, the other thing that nature does is it uses the process of the hydrologic cycle to actually refresh or renew, recycle the water that's on Earth. And to renew or recycle means that we've taken water that's been used, and now at some point in that process, it has been purified or renewed. If you look at this slide in front of you, it's got a real simplistic picture of the hydrologic cycle. And you'll see step number 1 is the process of evaporation. When water evaporates, it's just a natural phenomenon that all of the dirt, the debris, the bugs, bacteria, viruses, all of the stuff is left behind. It goes up, it forms clouds, and comes down to precipitation. And that is the way that nature recycles its water. So now talking about point of use systems, we've talked about the barrier. Well, the other option is a steam distillation unit. And a high purity JB system uses the same process as nature. It's that process of evaporation. So you're no longer relying on a man-made membrane or imperfect filter. Either that water evaporates and you end up with absolutely pure H2O in the form of steam, which we condense and run into a sterile stainless steel environment, or you end up with nothing. It's a very simple process. There's no room for air. And that's why a steam distillation system will deliver absolutely perfect water forever. When it comes to manufacturers of batteries and steam irons and radiators of cars, a lot of times they recommend or they demand that you use distilled water in their equipment. And the reason is because if they say purified or they say reverse osmosis or filtered water, they don't know for sure what they're going to be getting, because depending on the system, there's going to be a lot of different variables. But when they say steam distilled, it doesn't really matter what distiller it went through. It doesn't matter the brand or where it was, what the source water was. When water's been distilled, it is absolutely pure and clean. And that's what makes it such a reliable process. Now, some people think distilled water, my goodness, if I drink distilled water, that's like drinking battery acid or that's what they use in the chemistry department. That's just a misunderstanding because of where distilled water is typically used. All it is pure H2O, which makes up over 70% of the body. The cleaner the water, the better people's health. Some people might even refer to distilled water as skinny water. It hydrates, replenishes the body. I mean, distilled water is what is in the body. When the body gets imperfect water, it actually has to clean it up before it can start to use it in the processes that it performs. And just about every process the body performs is done in the presence of a water solution, whether it's excreting toxins and waste, transporting nutrients, or lubricating joints, or the many other wonderful processes that our amazing bodies perform. Some of the advocates of distilled water over the years are Dr. Andrew Weil and also the Balches for prescription for nutritional healing. Several of the leads in the health and wellness industry, kind of the alternative realm, have found that distilled water is nothing more than absolutely pure H2O, which is what our bodies need. One of the earliest proponents of distilled water was actually Dr. Alexander Graham Bell. And you can actually do a Google search and see a little journal entry that he had talking about some problems that he had with arthritis and sciatic nerves, and how when he drank distilled water, it was able to go in and flush a lot of those toxins out of his body to help improve his health. So this is just a little tidbit on different water systems, and I hope it's been helpful to you. If you want more information on how to purify water in your home or what a different system does, you can always go to our website at 480water.com and send us a message if you have any questions that aren't answered on the website.